Oh, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Monster Bass channel. I am Brad with Chill Outdoors. Today we're gonna look at a lure that I use probably more than most lures in terms of how much of the year I use it in. I use this lure probably 8 to 9 months of the year, and that is gonna be a lipless crankbait. Let's get into it. Before we go any further, drop a comment below. What state do you live in? And is a lipless crankbait successful? That's it, very simple. Just drop it below where you're from and if a lipless crankbait is successful for catching bass in your area. Let's see how versatile and widespread the success is for a lipless crankbait. Now, of course, make sure you subscribe to the Monster Bass channel. Make sure you go check out Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And if you're feeling so kind, you can go check me out on Chill Outdoors. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you check us out. Make sure you click that subscribe button and click the little bell for notifications. So my November Monster Bass box, great box, came with all kinds of stuff. I'll be going over all the lures in this box on my channel here in a couple of days, so make sure you look for that. But today we're gonna be looking at this LunkerCandy LC55. It is a lipless crankbait. Now, I love crankbaits. If you're familiar with my channel, I have done entire videos about lipless crankbaits. I even did a lipless crankbait showdown where I used 3 different crankbaits over the course of several hours to see what were the fish looking for that day. And I've learned probably more about lipless cranking in the last year than any other lure except drop shot. Drop shot is definitely a new one to me, but lipless is just so versatile. You can use this thing in so many different platforms, and it's just phenomenal the reaction bites that you will get from this sucker. Now, looking at this lure in terms of size, this is a smaller sized lure, 55 millimeters. This is smaller than most lipless that you will see on the market, but it has its purposes and its advantages, right? So the size is a little bit smaller, but why is that? Let's look at the color, blue chrome. It's a blue chrome color. Now, blue chrome is made to usually match minnows, right? Bait fish. We want to look like a little minnow darting through the water. And when does blue chrome do best? Sunny days. So think about the scenario in which you would want to throw this. What would maximize your opportunity with this lure? Bright sunny day, probably clear skies, and clear water. You throw this in clear water on a sunny day, and it's going to have a little bit of a flash to it. It's going to have a very natural look in that bright sun, and the fish are gonna assume this to be some kind of bait fish. This type of lure, when I was a kid, was phenomenal on rivers. And I never really made the connection. I just thought you used blue chrome lures on rivers. Well, think about it. Most creeks and rivers are usually very clear water. Very clear a lot of the times. Now they get muddy after a rain, sure. But a lot of the times a river or a creek is clear, and they're usually loaded with bait fish. And they're great for you shore fishermen. For those of you without a boat, this is probably gonna be a tremendous lure for you on clear, sunny days. But I'm not talking about just in the spring. Right now, in a lot of the US, you guys are already seeing a little bit of ice. Some of you guys are even seeing ice and then thawing and then ice and then thawing. When ice melts, the minnow baits are fire. So just a quick note, don't forget about this even in cold weather. Now I just wanna add in here, sunny days with a blue and chrome lipless is not your only options. If you have muddy chocolate milk water, super stained water, a lipless with rattles is a classic lure to throw in muddy water. You don't have many options. You need something that's loud and something that gets a reaction strike. So a lipless with rattles is a classic muddy water lure. Stained water, shallow water during the spawn, a bluegill color during the spawn or in shallow water, or as fish are moving up. Crawdad colors, if you get a heavier one and you fish it a little bit slower, yo-yoing it off the bottom. Classic, absolute classic lure. So don't forget about those other options. Don't forget about the other conditions. There's more to a lipless than just a chrome blue back on sunny days. The options are endless. All right, equipment with a lure like this. You're probably gonna want a faster gear ratio because a lot of the times you're gonna wanna burn, pause this, and we'll talk about techniques in a minute. I typically would throw probably at least a 6 to 1 to 1, maybe a 7-1-1. As for your rod, a lot of people are gonna want a moderate action or a heavy action. I think I typically throw a heavy action rod with a fast tip. That's just what I prefer to use. I like having a little bit of backbone because I'm gonna be dragging this through grass, believe it or not. And yes, there is exposed treble hooks here, and we'll get to that in 1 second. So faster reel, Probably a heavier rod in my opinion. That's what I like to use. Now, technique. Let's start with your cast. I'm gonna be blazing this sucker as far as I can. I want a long retrieve on this sucker. Where are we gonna throw this? I'm gonna bounce this over all kinds of stuff. Logs, rocks especially, grass especially. I'm gonna be throwing this just about anywhere that I can find. Now the funny thing is, you almost want this thing to get hung up in the grass. When I'm dragging this through grass, what will happen is I'll cast it out there and I'll start my retrieve. Burn, burn, pause. Burn, burn, pause. I mean, I am cranking this thing fast. But occasionally during that pause, it might get hung up in the grass. I will yank it out of there and burn, burn, pause. Yank it out of it, burn, burn, pause. Now what is that doing in the fish's eye? That fish will see this lure coming, right? And it stops, sinks into that grass, and then I rip it out of the grass. It's an instinctual reaction bite. It's an instinctual reaction bite for that largemouth bass or that smallmouth bass. The bass are gonna wanna hit this because they, for one, it looks like a bait fish darting around avoiding prey, which is just a natural habit for a fish to wanna eat prey that's trying to avoid it, right? Two, it looks like it's trying to hide in that grass. It's darting out of the grass. It's presenting it an opportunity to feel as if the fish is ambushing it. We've talked about that before on this channel. You want your lure to present the fish with the opportunity that it thinks it's ambushing you. Grass, rocks, maybe some sticks, but not too thick a timber because it is exposed trebles. But the way that this thing is gonna run is kind of like this. When you're burning it, it's actually gonna almost stand on end. So you don't have to be as concerned about these treble hooks. Now this one specifically actually has smaller hooks, and I do prefer smaller hooks on a lipless because I think it makes it a little bit harder for the fish to throw it. Now something else let's talk about is why is this thing so narrow? Why are lipless so narrow? It's because you want a tight wobble. On a lipless crankbait, the way that you're burning this over grass, burning it over rocks, the way that this is to present in front of a fish, you want it to have a tighter wobble. You want this thing to have a tighter wobble because that is how the bait fish are reacting when you're using something like this. This is how you want to present it, especially early spring. I'm talking early spring here in the Midwest. I'm talking about like January, February, late winter, early spring. You want this thing to look like a bait fish that is either just coming out of an ice thaw or a bait fish that's trying to get back to some cover or a bait fish that might be moving up into shallows. And those fish in cold water are gonna have a tighter movement pattern. Therefore, you want your lure to have a tighter wobble. All right, everybody, that is it for this video. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, lipless crank, LunkerCandy. If you're interested in this product, you can check them out on their Facebook and on their website. And of course, MONSTERBASS, make sure you subscribe right here on the MONSTERBASS channel. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. And then check out Chill Outdoors, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for being here. Peace.